And Nick is here. Nick, lots of pushback on this plan from the travel sector, but there would be, wouldn't there? Their very existence kind of depends on opening up at some point in the not too distant future. But are they offering any kind of alternative ideas?
So this is the kind of the buzzword, Martin, at the moment, this idea of air bridges. Now, air bridges, it sounds like something from a science fiction film or a fantasy film. What it is essentially is two countries coming together and saying, OK, you have a pretty low COVID-19 infection rate, I have a pretty low COVID-19 infection rate. Why don't our two countries get together and basically decide that we can agree that when travellers come from one country to another, that they don't have to go into this isolation period. So we had the news yesterday that Spain is actually planning on opening up its borders for tourists, actually nearly 2 weeks earlier than it had originally anticipated. But unfortunately, the British data just doesn't look good enough for them to say, OK, you can come a bit earlier. So what that means is that the British data isn't looking good for air bridges with anybody at the moment.
Yeah, look, if I wanted to get away now, if I just had enough and wanted to go tomorrow, it was sunny last week, it just started raining outside, somebody's just told me, I've had enough, I want to get away tomorrow, where
Bring
can I...
me with you first of all.
Yeah, exactly, where can we go?
So, first of all, the Foreign Office advice is very, very clear, and it's telling us that we should not travel except for really essential purposes, so to stay where you are. Now, if that advice was lifted, on this side we're okay, but then we get to say Greece, or we get to Canada, or we get to Poland, and they say, actually, no, you will need to quarantine for such and such amount of time. So Greece, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, all have these 14-day isolation periods in place at the moment. Spain, as I mentioned, is not looking particularly good, at least until July, roughly, or maybe even into July. Ireland, Irish people can come here and not isolate, but if we go there, we do have to isolate. And meanwhile, France have kind of said, well, because the UK have brought in this quarantine measures from Monday, we're going to bring them in as well. So there is no one uniform strategy.
Yeah, and I guess, you know, what traditionally a lot of British people conjure up in their minds as a good summer holiday involves doing a lot of things that are not a good idea at the moment with the pandemic on the go. Hanging around in busy bars, chief among them in my mind. So that's probably going to be the problem too, isn't it? It's trusting people to behave themselves when they get away, have a couple of drinks with dinner. This
is the thing, and because if you're in France, the rules of lockdown in France, as we've seen today, are very, very different to how the rules in Germany look or how the rules in Italy look. So you really have to tailor your experience each time. As Ash mentioned in the piece, there are some countries he would have been fine, but in other countries he would have just had to stay indoors for 14 days and then come home and stay indoors for 14 days again. Right,
and as ever, this is a process of continual review, right? Just like the easing of the lockdown restrictions here has been, every 3 weeks they're going to review the quarantine, is that right?
That's right, and what we also need to pay really close attention to is the Foreign Office advice at the moment as well. So at the moment they're telling us to stay put. That could really change. In a week, it could change in a month, it could change in 3 months. So it's very difficult for us to plan going forward how to plan a holiday, because you don't know if stuff gets cancelled. Will your travel insurance pay out? Will your airline pay out? It's very, very difficult to know. So we need to keep a super close eye on what the Foreign Office is telling us.
We can only dream that things clear up, that infection rates fall, that the sun shines here, actually.
Well, you've got
that'd be nice enough.
Quite a wish list there, Martin.
A staycation, a nice sunny Scottish staycation. That'll do me. Nick, thanks a million.
Not at all.